The Starr and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. Welcome to the Starr and D'Amico Show. I am Shaun Starr. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for spending some of your day with us. We have a lot to get into today. The morning after the night that was for the Montreal Canadiens, coming from behind in a scratch and claw game at the Minnesota Wild, and be interesting to read all of your comments and get your reaction to what is going on with the Montreal Canadiens in the state of Minnesota, unable to win there in their last 12. 4-3 overtime decision. And once again, you know, I know we can talk about this, and more often than not, I'm generally part of the group think that isn't a fan of always looking at what's going on with the referees and blaming the referees and everything else. But it'd be nice to come here and talk together in the aftermath of a game in which we're not talking about the referees. So we've got lots to get to today, including Jakub Dobeš getting his fourth straight start and extends his personal win streak once again by helping backstop the Montreal Canadiens with a 20-save effort in that 4-3 overtime win, with Kirill Kaprizov getting his 32nd of the year on the power play. We saw some highlight reel goals from Brendan Gallagher as he walks Quinn Hughes, Lane Hudson and his magic with Noah Dobson, his unbelievable vision and execution on the pass to Ivan Demidov, and Kirby Dach with a nose to the net. Looks like he's a nice complementary piece now, starting to fulfill that role on the Suzuki and Caulfield line as the Montreal Canadiens get back to work tomorrow in Winnipeg, and that will be it. The last of the games for the Canadiens as they look forward to the Olympic break. As we know now, 4 Canadiens will be a part of that, and then we don't see them again for a little bit. So the Canadiens will play at Winnipeg, and then they're back in action at home against the New York Islanders on February 26th. I'll be curious to get your comments throughout today's segment as we move around that one. As my man here, Frankie McCumber Jr., talks, we can't win them all. A very valiant effort, and I think that's one thing that's obviously so commendable about the Montreal Canadiens, and we're going to hear from a few players, including Captain Nick Suzuki, in what was it a controversial moment in the collision as he's skating backwards with Joel Eriksson Ek, and that basically allows the zone entry into Montreal Canadiens territory, and the rest is history. Kirill Kaprizov buries the winner. And what about the call on Phil Deneau? Let's start with the refereeing once again. And as JP points out here, referees were beyond awful last night. There were a couple of moments that obviously stand out. Early on, Oliver Kapanen right in the goal mouth as he falls down to the ice. The referee's in the right position at the right time. He's standing behind the net, watching Quinn Hughes not only have his hand on Kapanen's stick, but also squeezing the stick, and they let that play go. You want to talk about Ivan Demidov and his toe drag, and then who was it? Was it Bogosian who tomahawk chops Demidov's stick? And what does that stick often do? When it's not scoring goals, it's shattering. No call there. And then they call what was a Mr. Softy on Phil Deneau in overtime that allows the 4-on-3, and the Montreal Canadiens take a point but lose the game in what was another big night on the out-of-town scoreboard. And it's another big night on the out-of-town scoreboard for the Montreal Canadiens. And we can talk about how legitimate are these Buffalo Sabres. They don't seem to be going away. Detroit goes to Colorado after getting shut out by the Avalanche. They shut the door down on the Avs in Colorado in a 2-0 final. So what does it mean for the Montreal Canadiens in between games in the overall standings? Well, the good news is after 56 games, Montreal's on 31 wins and 70 points. So it means they're 2 points back of Detroit, 4 back of the Lightning. The Buffalo Sabres will face the Lightning tonight at 7:30. Buffalo and Boston are your 2 wildcard teams. The Sabres are on 69 points. Nice. The Bruins are on 68 points. The Capitals are the closest to the wildcard chasers in the wildcard chase on 63 points. Ottawa and Toronto, who both won their games. The Senators, by the way, getting much better goaltending, and they've started to win. They've won 4 in a row, but the Leafs and Sens are on 61 points, so 7 back of the wild card teams in Buffalo and Boston. Lots to get to today as we talk about where the Canadiens get down and don't pull away. I want to hear from some Habs and get your reaction to this as we hear from the Canadiens captain on what was a controversial moment. I'm curious to get the reaction here. I'm going to listen to the fans. Let's get some comments in. Was it the right call? Were the Canadiens jobbed? Certainly, we've seen that before, not only in the Minnesota game, the phantom call. Who was it? Was it Foligno who trips and Hudson goes to the box? What did you think of the Hudson call for the tripping? Again, it's just, I hate talking about the referees, man, but there's something going on. And I'm curious to get your reaction to what you think it is. I mean, do they have memories like elephants? Are we going to go all the way back to that infamous Edmonton game where there was a bunch of calls that went sideways and Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson took exception to it on the ice, Cole Caulfield after that? But here's your captain, Nick Suzuki, in the aftermath of last night's overtime loss on the missed call, was it?
It was a call that was missed there at the, during the overtime.
On me? Like I was tripped. I'm skating backwards for the whole neutral zone and I got kind of picked, but I guess the ref saw it differently.
Did you feel it was?
Now, Martin St. Louis, and listen, I commend the Montreal Canadiens, for not only dealing with what is, I'll put it kindly, inconsistent officiating on a nightly basis, that the players aren't flipping their lids. The coach isn't throwing things on the ice. He's not putting his hands up, though he did have some conversations with the officiating crew a couple of times that were caught on camera, but nothing egregious. Martin St. Louis en français.
À la fin, c'est un peu frustrant, Martin, parce que un appel contre Suzuki, vous avez eu le même genre d'appel contre vous autres récemment. Est-ce que pour toi, il y a là une situation qui déçoit là-dedans?
Ouais, je m'attends à plus. Je m'attends à plus.
À la fin, c'est un peu frustrant, Martin, parce que.
So Martin St. Louis in French, he just wants more. He just wants more. If you not fluent in French, the question about the frustration of the lack of call there, maybe to a larger effect, the call on Phil Deneau in overtime that gave Minnesota the 4-on-3 and Kaprizov buries it past Dobesh for the winner, that they're wanting a little bit more. And I don't know if this comes in the territory, you guys, about the Canadiens obviously being the youngest team in the National Hockey League. They're one of the most indisciplined teams in the NHL. We're talking about, top 5 in terms of penalty minutes accrued throughout the course of the season. And it's funny that, if we go back in the Canadiens timeline, when they had players like Shea Weber and they had players like Carey Price, I mean, these were universally respected players that more often than not got the benefit of the doubt. What's happening this season? I mean, Nick Suzuki's the captain of this team. He is a legitimate, I think, was he in the top 10, top 15 of overall scoring in the National Hockey League? He wears the C on his sweater. He's going to represent Canada at the upcoming Olympic Games. Are we not talking about Nick Suzuki earning the respect of the National Hockey League as the captain of this organization? Brendan Gallagher has been around for 100 years. We'll talk about his highlight reel goals. He walks Quinn Hughes and buries it to get the Canadiens started, and that was such a huge goal. But I'm fascinated by what seems to be a lack of respect towards the Montreal Canadiens from the teams that were to where they are now. And why is it happening? I mean, is it just inconsistencies? Is it league wide? Is it running all around him? I mean, as some of the comments point up here in the aftermath of listening to Nick Suzuki talk about what happened in overtime, as JB points out, it was no pick. He ran into him. Also, I mean, we could talk about Oliver Kapanen. How many games was that? 2-3 games ago where he got called? I mean, he's trying to stay offside. He's trying to keep the play onside, I should say. And Joel Eriksson Ek made no intention of moving whatsoever. Nick Suzuki is skating backwards the entire time. To me, I think the takeaway is, and listen, I don't want to come across as the ultimate Canadiens homer, even though this is my team, you guys. Go Habs, go, right? But ultimately, on any given night, I think you can have a completely different set of referees on the ice last night, and I think you can have a completely different call, which is aggravating in its own right because of the interpretation ultimately of the rule book. So yes, he was skating backwards. I think Joel Eriksson Ek saw him coming and then never made an opportunity to get out of the way, and the referees let that play go. So, I mean, it's a 50-50 coin flip call, right? And so the Canadiens adjusted and failed to, and then obviously Jakub Dobeš there. As Francois Bedard, thank you for the comment today. Montreal 30th in terms of penalty ratio, provoked versus taken. Minnesota is first. Boston is actually 32nd by far. Thanks for the insight there. So, more reaction to what happened. And then ultimately the Montreal Canadiens, who I thought, if there's a compliment to be paid about this team this season, not only, I mean, it's another, I think, example of how closely connected, how much they believe in each other based on the sheer amount of comeback wins this season. But further to that, I mean, they're chasing the game from the jump, right? It was 36 seconds in where Joel Eriksson Ek on his 15th of the season buries it. Kirill Kaprizov 15 minutes later on his 31st from Quinn Hughes, who was all over the ice last night. And then with 52 seconds left in that first period, Brendan Gallagher gets his first of the year. Now, I want to hear from Kirby Dach on the deserve meter after last night's 4-3 overtime loss. Here he is.
I thought we played well. I think we traded chances. I think that's something that we'd like to clean up and be a little bit more responsible defensively. But offensively, maybe we could create a little bit more. But I felt like we established a good forecheck, won pucks back. But I think we deserved better tonight. I think there's things that were out of our control that didn't go our way, and you can't sit around and complain about them all the time. You got to kind of put your head down and go to work, and just wasn't in our favor tonight.
So there's Kirby Dach. And did you pay attention to what he said there? We deserve better. Things were out of our control tonight. Who do you think he's talking about, right? Who do you think he's talking about? Not talking about, the defenseman. He's not talking about Jakub Dobeš. I don't think he's talking about his line or his individual performance in that game. He's talking about things out of his control. And unfortunately, here we are again in the aftermath of a Canadiens game, and we're talking about how the referees managed that game, how they interpreted that situation. And it's got to be frustrating from these players, but I'll repeat myself. It's commendable that the team isn't going to flip its lid and ultimately find a way to lose their composure in this game. As Kenny points out, yes, if you've noticed, here I am solo for right now. Kenny wondering, so you're not going to tell us where Marco is. As I pointed out on social media, Marco had and is still dealing with a kind of family emergency. So as a result, I didn't want to not be here to talk about that game. So I'm going to step up, and I've got my partner in crime's back. So he would love to be here, but unfortunately for this segment, he's not going to be able to join us. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more clarity as we move on. But just so everybody is aware, this is what's going on. And of course, our thoughts are with Marco at this time, but that's all I really could say about this point. It all happened kind of quickly. And so Kenny and everybody else is fully aware of what's going on. I just want to point that out. In the meantime, yeah. Thank you so much for being with us here on this what day of the week is it today? My goodness gracious. The week is just moving along on this Tuesday. So yeah, one more game to go, and the Montreal Canadiens are in Winnipeg. Lots going on, as I mentioned. So we heard from Kirby Dach. I don't think the players were clearly happy, and it's always been a pet peeve of mine, right? Talking about the referees and game management, but I don't want to spend too much time other than, I got it off my chest. I said what I had to say, and the Montreal Canadiens will continue the grind against the Winnipeg Jets. In the meantime, how about a couple of positives from last night? Obviously, we could talk about Brendan Gallagher, Phil Deneau, and Mike Matheson making that happen. Unreal goal by Brendan Gallagher. I love the lack of celebration, like a boss move. That was his 5th of the year. A very, very important goal. If you believe in momentum, if you believe leaving the period with a kind of positive vibe, that goal from Gallagher, not only the move on Quinn Hughes, who was basically a rare opportunity where Quinn wasn't mobile as Gallagher walks him. Faber on that play as well, and then ultimately finishes it past Philip Gustafsson to get the Canadiens on the board. And then the second period plays, and I thought the Canadiens in that second period also started to not only open it up a little bit. I really enjoyed how aggressive I thought the Canadiens were in that hockey game. And yes, it did result in several odd man rushes going the other way. But I like the Canadiens kind of keeping that identity, because it's one thing we've talked about recently together is, and maybe it's what happens when you're the youngest team in hockey, is that sometimes when you have a lead and you're trying to get those reps in terms of how to close out a game and keeping your foot on the gas. The Canadiens earlier on in the season, right, were not great at holding on to leads. I find in the regular season, they've kind of had a change of tactic. And I like the lack of dump and chase. I like how aggressive they've been, especially from the defensive side of the ledger, right, where you have even Alex Carrier, who was on a wild scoring touch. Noah Dobson looking great with Lane Hudson. Their numbers in the very short sample size are off the charts together. Now, Caden Gooley and Mike Matheson, you could say maybe didn't have their best game, but also the reality is when you look at the box score in the aftermath of that 4-3 overtime loss to Minnesota, right? And we've talked about this before. The Canadiens are basically playing with 5 defensemen. Arber Xhekaj got less than 6 minutes. He got 5:51 yesterday compared to Lane Hudson playing a shade under 26. Mike Matheson, a shade under 26 minutes. Noah Dobson, over 26 minutes. Alex Carrier around the 20-minute marker, right? And it's a self-imposed kind of handcuff situation. And then we can talk about how Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon and the rest of the front office are going to navigate what they're going to do about that. Does Jaden Struble get in against Winnipeg? Can he play more reliable minutes than what Arber Xhekaj? For whatever reason, Martin St. Louis is I think very, very tight on the Arber leash. Why is that? I'm not exactly sure. It's hard to grow confidence when you do get into the lineup and you are dressed and you don't get a lot of shifts and you don't get a lot of reps, and that maybe you make one errant pass and then your butt's glued to the bench. So I think it's a tricky spot for the coaching staff to navigate. And then ultimately, is this something this organization needs to address? Whether it's tomorrow, because the roster freeze is on February 4th, or the March 6th NHL trade deadline. Do they need to figure out how to get a little bit more stability / reliability on the right side of the Canadiens' blue line? And whether that comes from making a trade, could Patrick Laine bring a player in that could help the Montreal Canadiens shore up the right side of the defense? It's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that, because the March 6th trade deadline comes fast and furious. I mean, just to pinpoint it more accurately, at Winnipeg tomorrow at 7:00. And then their first game out is February 26th. So they're going to play 3 games. They're going to play 3 games when they get back from the Olympics. And then, boom, the NHL trade deadline comes at you fast and furious. So I would imagine the Canadiens front office is going to have a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions about what they want to do during the 3-week kind of layoff between the start and the end of the Olympics as they make a push for the playoffs, because Montreal continues to sit in 3rd place in their division. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because I don't think this is something that you can continue to do, to have one of your defensemen arguably playing between 5 and 9 minutes a night on any given day when they're playing. And that also applies, by the way, to Jaden Struble, who hasn't played in a minute, right? So it's something to pay attention to, because when we talk about potential transactions, my partner, Marco D'Amico, had a piece at rg.org about the Nazem Kadri situation, what's going on there, right? And his sources indicated that, yes, the Canadiens were kicking tires on Nazem Kadri, and then they went and they got Phil Deneau. who kind of changed things. And you know what else kind of changed things? Almost to a lesser degree than what we saw at the Four Nations break, right? The infamous meeting with Ken Hughes and Captain Nick Suzuki. You don't want me to trade your teammates? Well, then do something about it. And boy, did Nick Suzuki answer the bell in a massive way, along with the rest of his team, pretty much defying the percentages and getting and earning a spot in the top 8 in the Eastern Conference. And that this year, once again, I think the Montreal Canadiens have shown this fan base about how they thrive under challenges. You can look to last week when, they ran through the gauntlet of playing Vegas, Colorado, and Buffalo, 6 points on the table, and they took all 6. And then they come back from a 2-0 deficit to lock down a point in the 4-3 overtime loss. That this team doesn't quit, that this team has effort, a valiant effort. And the togetherness of this team is obviously quite strong, right? And so the challenge is there that I don't think, and as Marco pointed out in his piece at rg.org around Nazem Kadri, that the Montreal Canadiens within the season and their competitive level rose to the point where, once again, as much as I like Nazem Kadri, I think if you're a loyal viewer to the show, a listener to the show, I've made the case for Nazem Kadri in terms of the role he could play, the style that he brings to a game, his playoff resume. I mean, it checks a lot of boxes. What doesn't check boxes is threefold. It's the asking price, what it's going to cost to get him, his age, and how many years and how much money he makes, and what's left on his contract, right? And so not only did the Canadiens establish a much more potent second line with Oliver Kapanen on 17 goals, he had an opportunity in Minnesota last night to score his 18th, but threw it into the belly of Philip Gustafsson. But Ivan Demidov on 46 points, Juraj Slafkovsky being the air quote man on that line, and the Canadiens having another option beyond the Suzuki line. I think that changed the narrative around what the Montreal Canadiens are looking to do. And then they went out and got Phil Deneau. And listen, you didn't get Phil Deneau for nothing. The Canadiens have told us for years now that they just don't want to throw draft picks and throw them away. So they gave up a second rounder to get him, but he's definitely filled a need. Now, whether you think he needed to be on the ice or overtime in the loss to Minnesota, I'm here for that discussion, right? But ultimately, he filled a need. And with Jake Evans back and the Canadiens getting healthier, and it looks like, how soon is Alex Newhook going to return to the fold? He's skating with equipment. And then is there even a roster spot for Patrick Laine? So I think all of that kind of changed the narrative. And the other thing that I think is important to note here is one thing that's been refreshing. And I think if you're a longtime fan of the Canadiens, that you've lived through various regimes. Hell, you want to go back to Andre Savard, you want to move through Pierre Gauthier, you want to move through Marc Bergevin, and now we could talk about the Hugo era, right? One thing that I find is unique with Hughes and Gordon is, I wouldn't say full transparency, but more clarity than in any other regime I've seen around the Montreal Canadiens, going back to Andre Savard's days. For years now, the Canadiens have consistently told the fan base and the market that they have a plan, to the point where you can argue they're stubborn, but stubborn in a good way in terms of roster construction and how they see the path towards becoming a Stanley Cup contender. And they're very careful in their moves. And that when they think about a player, age is a massive factor. Where is this player's development syncing up in terms of the Canadiens' own competitive timeline? And they're not about the patchwork. They're not about Band-Aid solutions on a wish and a prayer that this player not only will answer the questions they have today, but in seasons to come. And the other thing they've been very clear on is no glorified rentals, that they're not trading assets for, again, these kind of patchwork solutions, right? Let's get to some of your comments here. Thanks for being with us again. My partner in crime, Marco D'Amico, last-minute family emergency has risen up, and as a result, we had to pivot in real time. But, I just wanted to make sure I was here. I don't know if I'm going to go for an hour talking out my Wazoo solo mission. But nevertheless, I just wanted to be here, get your reaction so we can all kind of get together and talk about this Canadiens comeback and a well-earned point. The takeaway for me, this is very much a well-earned point by the Montreal Canadiens. last night. Here's Mass in Montreal. Shaun, what's the rush? Why not wait for the summer? Newhook is back. Hage is coming. Why do we have to overpay for something that might not be a fit as early as next year? I'm not in the rush business. I'm not in the rush business whatsoever, right? And again, I'll echo what I had just said. Management has also, I think, assured the fan base or reassured them that they're not going to bring in the Dwight Kings and the Steve Otts and the Andreas Martinson because somebody in the media said they need to be tougher and need more edge. There's nothing that this organization and their front office has done that leads us down the path that that's what they're going to do. And if you want to talk about, are the Canadiens going to get maybe a better version of a second line center? Because I don't know what you have as a fan, in terms of the Canadiens' Stanley Cup contention window, when that window finally opens. When is that? Is it next year? Are you that optimistic that it's next year, or is it the year after that, right? So let's riff off this for a second. Doug Armstrong, the man in charge of the St. Louis Blues, has more or less opened the doors for business for key players within his organization. And I'm going to echo something that my partner Marco D'Amico has said many times, right? When did we see the Noah Dobson trade coming? The answer is we didn't see it coming until it actually happened. And I think if we're talking about, a Robert Thomas or a Jordan Kyrou, that level of player, someone young, someone that fits in and sinks in with the Canadiens' contention window and their rebuilding plan, right? Those type of moves, in my opinion, are probably going to happen in the summertime. That's just my read on this. I don't know if someone is going to jump at Doug Armstrong between whether it happens today or before 3:00 tomorrow for the Olympic roster freeze. And as I mentioned, when March 6th comes, the Canadiens will play 3 games before March 6th. I would be shocked if the Canadiens got a player or players of that magnitude between now and March 6th. So if we're talking about a Noah Dobson-esque kind of transaction, to me, that reeks of a summer move. I hope I'm wrong, because I think it would be great content if the Montreal Canadiens slam-a-dam-a ding-dong hit a transactional home run, and we're here to react to that together in this Habs community, right? So in that context, there's nothing that I believe, and there's nothing that I think the front office has communicated to the fan base when it comes to any rush moves. They've been so consistent there. And like I said, I find it so refreshing that, it's one thing to have a vision, and it's the other to have the stones to continue along that vision. I'm full of it today, Maddie, baby. I'm full of it, baby. I love it. Let me get to some more comments here from a member of the show. Thank you. Thanks for being a part of the community. Our community is thriving, by the way. If you're joining us, and we're at just over 350 live viewers, 28 minutes into the live stream. Again, if you're just joining us, my everyday partner, Marco D'Amico, here on YouTube.com, had a family emergency that popped up very early this morning. It's never a good thing. It's never a good thing. I'll give you a little insight into my day-to-day life. Normally, I get up around, anywhere between 3:30 and 3:45 in the morning for my daily radio show with Connor McKenna on TSN 690. We do the morning show together from 6 to 10, Monday through Friday, And as I was leaving my house, I don't know, must have been 4:30, right around there, I got my phone in my pocket and it vibrates. Bzz, 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 bzz. And anybody who has any life experience knows that if somebody calls you in the middle of the night, or, at 4:30 in the morning, and there's a phone buzz, either someone's calling or texting you, the batting percentage of it being not great news is significantly high. And so, Hanky has made an appearance today. What's up, Hank? Let's get the pupper on the screen today. So anybody that has any life experience knows you get a phone call or you get a message, chances are it's not good news, right? So when I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket around 4:30 in the morning, I knew right away. I said, oh, bleep. What's this going to be? Is it the wife at home? Something happened? Am I going to have to turn around and drive back home? Or is it something else? And that something else was Marco's message to me. So here I am flying solo mission, and that's what happened this morning. So we pivoted in real time, and I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk Canadiens. It's obviously a passion, right? So more comments from y'all coming up here. from Mass Montreal. Not Kyrou. Thomas, Kyrou soft if you want to make a big trade. It's always the interpretation, right, of players' reputations. I mean, it's quite clear. It's quite clear, things are sideways with the St. Louis Blues. You're losing all the time. You're blowing big leads. Your general manager's coming out talking all sorts of nonsense about the level of his players. Are they foundational pieces? More or less being very critical publicly criticizing your players. I can understand, you make a ton of money. You're a pro hockey player. You get paid crazy money to play a kid's game. But at the end of the day, these are like hyper competitive guys. And I don't think it's a great atmosphere. So like, that's how I kind of, I look at players that may be shopped around, even though they're very young and very talented and everything else. There was another question here I wanted to get to from my man, Ryerson, the MVP of the Starr and D'Amico show. What's up, brother? Thank you so much as always. And make sure, as this community grows, and I'm so proud of the growth of the channel overall. We're climbing. What are we at now? 13,244 subscribers. So if you're, hungry for Habs content, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. We release content more or less all the time. And make sure to hit the like on today's video. It just, I guess, tells the YouTube algorithm that we're here and people are reacting to what we're doing here today. So I appreciate that very much. But somebody in the comments asked me about David Reinbacher and what's going on with David Reinbacher. And obviously, Adam Engstrom has emerged as more or less a go-to guy for Pascal Vincent. I mean, he's having a phenomenal year with the Laval Rocket. He was on a heater before he got called up, and then he's been on an absolute heater since he went back down to the Laval Rocket. That when it comes to David Reinbacher and the injury history and the fact that he was chosen by this front office at 5th overall in what was a stacked and heavy, offensively talented draft, and the Canadiens went with a big righty defenseman. If you asked me this before the Noah Dobson transaction, I would have been more concrete with the no, I'm not moving Reinbacher, I'm more patient. But I think the Noah Dobson acquisition, the Noah Dobson contract, the role that he plays, I mean, you watch him and Lane Hudson together. I mean, we're talking about cheat code players, man. Their numbers, their traditional numbers, their advanced analytics as a pair are beyond elite. Beyond elite. Again, this is a cheat code tandem. And so what does that mean? Obviously, having a right-handed top 4 defenseman is such a valuable commodity. And to me, I still have patience with David Reinbacher. I mean, can you imagine the right side of the Montreal Canadiens looking something like Noah Dobson, Caden Gooley, and ultimately, I mean, I don't know how much, what Alex Carrier's future is going to be, but David Reinbacher on a third pair with, given the opportunity to, should an injury occur down the line, that David Reinbacher can probably comfortably slot into a top 4 role on the right side. I mean, we're talking in a dream world of having Dobson, Gooley, and Reinbacher on the right side. I mean, that, my friends, to me, is how this team is going to win a Stanley Cup. But if there's talk between Hughes and another general manager, and you're talking about a Robbie Thomas in this hypothetical conversation, we're talking about Robbie Thomas, and the Blues are liking the potential of a David Reinbacher, and they see something in David Reinbacher. Absolutely, without question. Montreal made 88. Thank you so much. Do we see Bryce Pickford in a Habs uniform this season splash the pot, or is he the real deal? Listen, I mean, Bryce Pickford is having a historic season, and I think Marco and I have more or less talked about what Bryce Pickford is doing. Several videos. You go back to our homepage on the youtube.com channel, and you'll see some videos we've done in 42 games, just to get everybody up to speed. In 42 games with the Medicine Hat Tigers, Pickford has 33 goals and 62 points through 42 games. So just adding to the dynamic offensive talent that the Montreal Canadiens have. And further to that, I think a fairer expectation personally, and this may be another reason why the Montreal Canadiens, I guess, air quote, don't make a move, right, is is what's going to happen with Michael Hage. And the fact that I choose to believe that we are going to see Michael Hage play games for the Montreal Canadiens, and that may be one of their pickups, something they do. And I could see I could totally see a role for Michael Hage playing on the wing. You know, they keep the second line intact, and they see what Michael Hage can do a la Lane Hudson. You know, so that's kind of how I see things going. And don't forget, by the way, we did a fun video yesterday. Thanks, Ryerson, for the reminder on the on our prospect video that we did when we talked about what Adam Engstrom is up to. Florian Xhekaj playing a fourth line role again for Pascal Vincent, and the first place Laval Rocket, who again is very commendable to talk about Laval for a second, because I mean they lost their best players to call-ups when the Canadiens were battling the injury bug, right? So right now the Montreal Canadiens defense is a very, very deep talent pool. And again, we don't know the extent of what's going on, but David Reinbacher right now has been dealing with injury after injury. And of course, we saw the latest injury with his head down and got crunched there. Again, I don't know anything other than the fact that he isn't playing. I haven't seen anything that points to, is it a collarbone? Is it a concussion? I mean, they said he was day to day. So beyond that, I don't know. So as Jamie and others have said here, trust the process, patience, people, patience. And I think that's a reasonable perspective, because the front office has chosen to be very, very transparent in what they're doing. And with players coming in, whether it's Michael Hage this year, Alex Zarofsky around the corner, Bryce Pickford, another player to look forward to, and then ultimately at the NHL level, like, tell me, you're watching this game last night, right, with the Wild? Obviously, Brendan Gallagher's goal was crazy, right? I think we can all agree that was just a crazy move, crazy finish, got the Canadiens kind of vibing in that game, right? And listen, a lot of people talking about the referees. Like, I spent like 10 minutes talking about the referees. How much I commend the players for not flipping their lids on how game managers these guys are, on the lack of consistency. You can flip a coin. Is it a penalty? Is it not? You can have another set of referees, and they're going to call penalties that weren't called by that night's officiating crew, right? Bogosian on Demidov, the stick hold on Oliver Kapanen, the soft call in a game like last night. Now you got me going on referees. In a game like last night, they call that on Phil Deneau in overtime, in what was a fun back and forth, well played, hard fought game, and that's what they call in overtime. Okay, like I said, flip a coin. Any given night, any given officiating crew, it is or isn't a call. You tell me. But back to my previous point about what's to come and how excited it is to see the prospects of Michael Hage at the NHL level, to see the hype around Alexander Zarofsky in the KHL, what Bryce Pickford is doing in the WHL with the Medicine Hat Tigers, right? But what about what these guys are doing now at the NHL level? I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You're not telling me, like, I'm not alone, as the seconds are winding down in the second period, as Lane Hudson from Alex Carrier gains zone entry. And what a move by Lane Hudson to get into the zone. Let's start there. And did you notice on the far side along the half wall, there was 93, stick in the air, looking for it. And I think in Hudson's periphery, what a laser beam of a pass, and what a finish by Ivan Demidov. As the Montreal Canadiens tie the game up in the dying seconds, less than 20 seconds to go, and Demidov gets his 12th of the season. And by the way, the 48th assist of the year for the Magic Man, Lane Hudson. And then obviously the third period starts the way it does. And this to me is, I think, an interesting kind of talking point, right? How do you feel about how Kirby Dach has looked? Alex Texier dealing with injury, right? And Kirby Dach has slotted back in to the number one role next to Caulfield and Suzuki. And what I liked about Kirby Dach's goal, because Nick Suzuki spoke about this, after the game, and Suzuki was asked about, did he see Kirby Dach? And the Canadiens captain admitted that he did not see Dach. But why did that goal occur? And you got to credit the Canadiens coaching staff for coaching this team up. You got to credit Kirby Dach, who now is starting to play much more consistent hockey. He's obviously picked up pace in his game, but more importantly, the coaching staff, I believe, in the advanced scouting department, and this is how the goal was generated, was he knew Nick Suzuki had the puck. And what did Kirby Dach know to do? Make a line to the net. And when Suzuki said he never saw him there, he also added that he knew Dach was going to go to the net. And that's exactly what happened. And Kirby Dach gets his goal. He had 4 shots last night, played over 17 minutes. Dach now has 4 points in his last 3 games. And since his return, he's played, 7 games? And looking very much implicated in what's going on. Yeah, out of the gate for sure. But the guy hadn't played since November 15th, gets back in on January 20th, and the Montreal Canadiens, along with Kirby Dach. So it's kind of interesting to me that when the Canadiens were going with Juraj Slafkovsky on that number 1 line, right? I think there's a very realistic chance that Kirby Dach can kind of play that Slafkovsky role. He's got the speed. I think Kirby Dach has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think obviously we all know as people that watch this team, and if we know it, can you imagine what Kirby Dach is feeling? I mean, he knows he has a lot to prove to himself, a lot to prove to the coaching staff, and more importantly, a lot to prove to his teammates. And so not only is he taking on the instruction, it's a role I think he can play. And so a la Juraj Slafkovsky, can he not be that net front? Can he not be that little digger in the corner that can come out, retrieve pucks as he did on the weekend to help generate offense, let alone score a goal? I think Kirby Dach is starting to find his rhythm. Now, again, it's one thing, you do it one night. The key, the magic beans is you just keep doing that. Fort George points out, Kirby Dach wants to get paid last year of his deal. He's a restricted free agent. And it'll be interesting to see, as Paulie points out here, signed Dach for a 1-year, $3 million deal so he can stop worrying about a contract, right? I mean, to me, I don't mind. Like, I'll spin it in a positive. I hope he's worried for a contract. I hope. I mean, go get paid. I'm for players getting paid. I'm for players getting paid. And you know what? If the contract as a restricted free agent is the carrot at the end of the stick, man, keep dangling it. There's no rush. And let's see it happen. I mean, I'd be surprised they got a 1-year deal, but I'd be good. You want to give Kirby Dach 3 years, $4 million? I'm good with something like that. As Snarlsbad points out, if Dach can stay healthy, he will exceed most expectations if he stays healthy. I mean, he was drafted where he was drafted for a reason, right? But I think ultimately when we talk about Kirby Dach, I mean, feel free to weigh in the chat and let me know what you think, right? I mean, Kirby Dach's future as an NHL player is on the wing, and that's okay. Even when, he was in Chicago, he came to Montreal without the reputation of being like a shutdown centerman, right? Like, wasn't good in draws. At the time, the Western Conference was, I think, a little bit more competitive than what it is now, Like, the Canadiens went into that game against Minnesota. Montreal in 24 Western Conference games this year, they had won 18. They were 18-6 against the West, So as K1 Max says, Dach is a winger, and that's totally fine. It's good, man. It's all good. No pressure. Go be that. Go. Everybody has a role to play. And if Kirby Dach's role is to be the new version of Juraj Slafkovsky on the Habs number 1 line, then God bless him. Go do it. Make it happen. And I think the Canadiens will be better off for it. Lots to talk about Arber Xhekaj. Listen, I don't know what to tell you. I know Arber Xhekaj for the second game in a row made what I think you can describe as a little bit of a bad pass, but it didn't generate in a goal against. It didn't really sway the momentum. The one thing I wonder about is, I mean, it seems obvious to me that the patience level, the tolerance for an Arber Xhekaj mistake is non-existent, in my opinion. As Andre Habs points out here in his belief, Arber didn't have a good night Maybe the coaching staff is asking him to do things and he isn't. You know, I think Arber Xhekaj's game, in my opinion, not that playing in the NHL is easy or simple, but what I mean more specifically for Xhekaj is don't turn it over. Be an absolute brute to play against. Pick your situations when it comes to physical contact correctly. And no one's asking him to drive offense. Like nobody. It's all good. Like you don't need to pinch. You don't need to be, somebody that can skate and make decisions the way Lane Hudson. The Canadiens got the offense from the back end. Oh, but they're good to go. You can ask Noah Dobson. You can ask Matheson. You can ask Hudson. I mean, hell, you can almost even ask Caden Gooley, right? Like you can ask these guys. They got the offense covered, right? But for Arber Xhekaj, it's good passes, good breakouts, and the physical element. You know, I want to address. I see it online all the time. You know, Little Drummer Boy 72 says Shaun Starr going to give Xhekaj more backhanded insults. I guess I'll shed a little clarity on this. You know, I've been talking about the Montreal Canadiens for a long time, and I really don't have an axe to grind. I've made it quite clear over the course of a long time. I am a massive Montreal Canadiens fan. Full stop. Full stop. It's my favorite team in the world, and it's not even close. It has been since as far as I can remember. I can remember games from 1986. I'm 47 years old. I want this team to do well. I like Arber Xhekaj when it comes to what he does well. I don't really believe in the narrative of protection. I think players that go into games that want to go after players are going to go after players. I don't think anybody's chicken in the NHL. You know, I'm not saying Macklin Celebrini is going to fight Arber Xhekaj. It's not what I'm saying. But guys who play a physical game, I don't think these are intimidated guys, right? So when, you know, if I'm critical of a player, it comes from just my opinion. I don't have an agenda. I'm not here to lead the parade for X player to get traded. I'm not here to lead the parade so a player can get benched because I have an agenda. I have a point of view. You have a point of view. We share that, whether it's on the radio together or whether it's here on youtube.com or wherever you get your audio podcast, right? So, I mean, you can be sensitive about Arber Xhekaj, who might be your favorite player, but you don't need to take it out on me. I'm not here. I try to call it as I see it. And I don't think I've been backhanded in terms of my criticism or compliments, if you want to use that, right? It's how can Arber Xhekaj, and like I told you, I don't understand why the leash seems to be quite short. Maybe you make a sloppy pass and you don't see the ice. He played less than 6 minutes yesterday. Why? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why. But it's interesting to me how the coaching staff has handled this guy, you know, and that's it. Not everybody's going to play a great game. I mean, we were complimentary this week about Zachary Bolduc. Has Zachary Bolduc followed it up with more repetitive good games? No, right? But our Arber Xhekaj is a darling. Everybody loves what he plays, the role that he plays, and I think a lot of people in this market see the potential of what Arber Xhekaj could do. I mean, hell, let me take you back. Let me take you back to October when I was talking. You know what I wanted to say, and I made an exaggerated point, right? I wasn't the biggest fan of the Canadiens' defense in terms of how they were being built. Martin St. Louis at camp had mentioned something about speed, and they believed speed on the defensive side was a weapon. I didn't like it. I was critical of it when they talked about Mike Matheson and Noah Dobson as a pairing. You know, these are guys that are offensive minded. I don't think Mike Matheson, you know, going into the season was known as this like shutdown guy extraordinaire, right? I don't believe that. But he's done an unbelievable job shorthanded this year and eats minutes and plays against the best opposition night in and night out and has done a great job, right? I was making the point at camp, like when the Canadiens were doing well in the playoffs in the COVID era, where's my Joel Edmondson? Where's my Ben Sherratt? Where's my Shea Weber? Air quote, where is my stay-at-home defenseman? Where's the guy who's going to play minutes and that if anybody sniffs the blue paint, you're going to pay a physical price? And that's what I wanted, and I still want that. And that takes me back to Arber Xhekaj. If he can be a pain in the ass to play against, and be that guy that prevents garbage goals from being scored against, man, who else on this team is going to do that? You're going to ask Caden Gooley to do all of it all of the time? That's not, Noah Dobson's no cupcake, but that's not his game. Caden Gooley's a rough and tumble customer. You don't want him doing that all the time. That's not Lane Hutson's game. I'm not saying he would be shy to do something like that. But in my opinion, as the Canadiens begin to march towards their Stanley Cup contending window, I believe you need more rough and tumble blue liners, those more air quote stay-at-home defensemen that can protect the front of the net, whether that's Dobesh or Fowler or Montembeault. So that's kind of where I'm coming at, So I just want to be clear that, because I get it a lot. I say something about a player, I say something about Arber Xhekaj, and on and on and on and on we go. I want him to do well. The Canadiens need that type of player. Full stop. End of the day. Ian Patterson, I became a Habs fan back in '86. I hope for the generation, maybe the young Hab fan watching, that you too get to celebrate, Stanley Cups. You get to see the march down St. Catherine Street, right? And that's the thing too. Yeah. I mean, it's been consistent. We talk about ice time or the lack thereof. Even when Jaden Struble slots in, we're not talking about the sixth defenseman gobbling up a bleep ton of minutes, right? So there's a lot of shorthanded situations. The Canadiens sometimes play with basically 5 defensemen, right? Chris and NDG, what's up, Chris? Do you think the Reinbacher draft pick is aging like our Kotkaniemi pick? Thoughts? I don't, listen, it obviously doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. But as I mentioned earlier, the Noah Dobson, acquisition, I think changed the narrative. It was so positive. Not only did they get a player with the talent of a Noah Dobson, I think it obviously made them a much better team at the NHL level. And it also, unlike what happened in goal this year, when Dobesh or Montembeault, couldn't basically win the crease, what did the Canadiens have to do about that? They had to call up Jacob Fowler. So I think because of the Noah Dobson acquisition, it prevented kind of a media buzz or this conversation having to be started about get David Reinbacher up, get Reinbacher up. I like that the most. So I'm not at the point where it's like, oh my God, they're going to regret this like the Kotkaniemi pick. So yeah, no, I'm not there, but thanks for the question. Lots of good comments today. We appreciate that very much. And don't forget, I want to remind everybody, the Canadiens play tomorrow in Winnipeg as they wrap up the pre-Olympic portion of their schedule. And then they're back in action on the 26th of February. Marco and I will be here to cover the Olympics as well, waiting for Team Canada. It's going to be a very bang tournament. Huh? I mean, it comes in, it's going to hit you fast and furious starting February 12th against Czechia, right? So it'll be so awesome to see. I loved hearing Nick Suzuki this week talk about playing shorthanded minutes. He said he missed playing shorthanded minutes. And I would imagine that's going to be a big role for the Canadiens captain coming up in Milano and Cortina. Love this comment from Acoustic Music. Jake Evans had a massive night in the dot last night. No doubt, the Canadiens have been very good of late in the face-off circle. They were very good against Colorado, if memory serves me right, and then again yesterday, where Jake Evans had a monster performance in the face-off circle. To the commenter's point, right? The numbers on Jake Evans, 91%. He went 10-1 in the face-off circle on a night where the Canadiens won 53.5% of the draws yesterday. So, well-earned point. I like the fight. I like where this team is going. I like the fact that, again, they tend to generally all season long kind of stick up for each other. As Yannick points out here, you cannot bat 1,000 with picks. Overall, it's been incredible. Michkov would have been a mistake, lack of maturity. Yeah, the Michkov, that's a bleep show going on in Philadelphia. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that storyline as that develops, right? Apparently, I mean, hockey's a very interesting kind of team sport, man. Like, everybody's got to pull at the same time in the same direction. And if you don't, yeah, I know, brother. Shaun said he didn't think he was going to do an hour, but yeah, we're at 55 minutes. The comments are so good. You guys are like awesome to interact with all the time, And as my mother always said, my son loves the sound of his own voice. So that'll do it for me today. Again, if you're just joining us, my partner in crime, Marco D'Amico, with the early morning text. Fort George, thank you so much. It means a lot. And if you're with us, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You like this video. It just tells YouTube that we're doing good things here and we're having lots of fun. And this is a Habs community that you can definitely be a part of, right? And just be a part of this. And unfortunately, hopefully things quiet down on the D'Amico family front. We can get back to this. Yeah, let's make Marco do a one-on-one. That'll be good. Could use the break, to be honest with you. All right, everybody. Habs are off to Winnipeg. They're off today, by the way. The Canadiens are off today, travel day, and no media availability. So we'll be here hopefully to react to the Canadiens and the Winnipeg Jets. Hey, before I say goodbye, don't leave just yet, everybody. Let's hear it. Let's hear it in the chat. Who's your goalie tomorrow night in Winnipeg? And what'd you think of Jakub Dobeš yesterday? I don't want to be too critical of Dobeš. I think he made some key stops. I liked how aggressive the Canadiens were. He made some big stops. He reads the puck well. I find he's so good to me at making the timely stops. But the goalies, man, sometimes I found some pucks went through him yesterday, which I'm not the biggest fan of. That could be a little bit of a telltale sign here. So what's everybody saying here? Who's starting in goal for the Canadiens tomorrow? Oh, thank you. You guys are so good with your comments today. Dobeš, Masses, Dobeš. So there's one for Dobeš. Monty, so we're 1-1. 2-1 Dobeš. 3-1 Dobeš. Sheldon says he'll be at the game. Awesome. So 3-1. 3-2 Dobeš. Why not play him again? That's 4 for Dobeš. There's another one for Monty. There's another one. 5, 6, 7. Doby. I think Fowler gets the call up. One more game to go. Fowler, you're getting the Winnipeg game. Another Dobeš. 100% says Bobby. Dobeš again. Dobeš. There's a good question. Thank you. We will be on TSN 690 tonight at 6 p.m. I guess I should mention that a little bit more often, right? TSN 690 has been awesome in terms of picking up the Starr and D'Amico show. So we'll have an hour of content for you on TSN 690. So if you're in your car driving around, picking up errands and all that stuff, Starr with the X t-shirt tomorrow. What's it? What am I missing? What's the joke? X. I don't have X. I wear size extra large. Have you noticed? I started going back to the gym. I've been hitting it pretty hard. Trying to get thin in the waist. I don't know if I'll ever be pretty in the face, but I'll take thin in the waist. I do enjoy going to the gym, but I've been going to the gym like 4 days a week, just trying to look super pretty for you guys. Let's see here. Listen twice. Thank you so much. More Dobeš. And I don't know when Patrick Laine is going to be in the lineup. More Dobeš here. Jim Who. Ha ha. Joey Gauthier's got the jokes. Thank you. I have noticed, Shaun. It's not easy. Keep pushing. Thank you very much. When I was at the gym today, I did about 45 minutes on the treadmill, I'm not... This body here, this Adonis, is not built for running. I'll put it that way, But I've been walking like on an incline at like 10%. I walk at an incline about 10% for about 10 minutes. And then I drop it down to like 4. And then I go up to 6. And then I go up to 10% incline. I'm just like, I got my AirPods in, I'm just going. And that little dumbbell press today, but it's fun. I enjoy feeling strong, and there's something too. I'm sure there's some science behind this, like going to the gym and being active and moving your body. I think it does something. I think it does something for your. Oh yes, oh yes. I don't think I ever had a lady in my life ever say, "Shaun, take me back to the pleasure palace." It would be nice, you know. This my sense of humor always allowed me to punch over my weight class with the ladies in my lifetime. My natural charisma and my sense of humor always allowed me to punch way above my weight class. I remember one time I was dating this girl for a long time. Like I actually asked her to marry me, and she actually said yes. I kid you not. It's a true story. And I still have. Obviously, it didn't work out because I didn't end up marrying her. That's a story for another day, friends. But I remember my buddy when he saw her, we went for dinner, and he goes, "What the how?" He goes, "You don't got money, brother. How did you how did you get that?" I'm telling you, I got gentlemen. If you've got a little confidence and you got the jokes, if you can make them laugh, I promise you, you're going to have a better than average batting average. You're not going to be below the Mendoza line. And so, yeah. Hey now. Yeah, we should do a Star After Dark. I got tons of stories, and I'm not shy to tell my stories. I love my stories, Yeah, and that's the other thing too. Losing weight is 80% food. 100%. What's that old line? You can't outwork a bad diet. And that to me, before I leave you, Christ, I don't stop talking, huh? I just don't stop talking. Um, you're not wrong, Georgia boy. But yeah, back to Nas. Like, I'm good at I've had a few vices in my life. Nothing like stupid, nothing stupid, nothing like life ruining or anything like that. But I've had a couple of vices in my life, and I was, whether it was something as stupid in my younger years of smoking cigarettes, for an example, like don't smoke cigarettes, man. Don't do it, But I was a smoker and for probably way too long. And I've been able to stop. I've been able to stop things and really never look back. But you know what, man? Like freaking eating food, the combination of how much I love to eat and me being lazy sometimes is a brutal combination. It's a brutal conversation. And it just didn't work for me, And that sucked. Getting up so early in the morning, eating bad, being lazy, blah 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 blah. But I'm happy to be going back to the gym. I'm eating better. I'm really trying to kick my own ass. If I'm being honest with you, I'm really trying to kick my own ass to have some self-imposed discipline about me that, minimize things and don't need to be eating restaurant food or whatever the case may be on the regular. So, yeah, that's it, man. That's it. So I encourage you, listen, if I could do it, you guys could do it too. And listen, I'm going to say something really cheesy here. I'm going to say something real cheesy. If you need any help or a boost or whatever, I always thought earlier on, I thought maybe I was going to be a detective or a cop and hopefully be a detective one day. I wanted to join the Canadian military. I always thought that was kind of my calling because I do like. I was always the guy in school, I guess, to put it in a better light. I always I couldn't help myself but protect the kids who were bullied, you know? Uh, And so I like to help, you know? And so like I've been through it, too much weight, blah, 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 blah. So if you just need the extra little boost, I got you, man. You can always email me at the Shaun Starr Show, my old email, theshaunstarshow@gmail.com. And if you need a little boost, maybe you need a tip. Not that I'm not pretending to be an expert. I'm no trainer. I'm not an expert, but I've gone through it a bunch of different times, right? So um, if you're struggling, don't doubt yourself. But if you need it, need a little extra boost, man, don't be shy. It's an email. I'll respond, theshaunstarshow@gmail.com. So that's it. You guys have been here on this channel supporting this community for a long time, and I'm more than happy to help out, if you relate to what I'm talking about, eating too much, smoking, trying to get back to the gym, incremental goals, little self-discipline, right? I try to do it. I'm trying to do it. All right. That's it for me. I didn't think I was going to go an hour. Here I am, an hour and 5 minutes. I apologize. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. And hopefully Marco will be back, hopefully. But again, I'm not putting any added stress on Marco. But I'm happy to be here with you guys today. And hopefully Marco will be back. If not, I guess I'll try to do this again solo mission after the Winnipeg game. Okay, guys? Enjoy the rest of your it's only Tuesday. Good grief, Charlie Brown. It's only Tuesday. Anyways, have a great Tuesday. Enjoy your families. Enjoy the rest of your day. And go Habs, go. I don't hate Arber Xhekaj, and I love you guys. Have a great day.